Two girls are competing for the crown in a beauty pageant. But one of them is suddenly struck with fear. She realizes she somehow lived through this exact competition before. She even remembers the scores. Yet she's absolutely certain this is her first time ever taking part in it. Have you ever experienced something strange like this? Sometimes, something is happening, yet it feels like you've lived through it before. You step into a place for the first time, but a strong, inexplicable sense of familiarity rushes over you, convincing you that you've definitely been here before. At first, Ritsu thought these were just ordinary coincidences. However, one day, he truly began to sense something unusual. He was startled to discover that a recently viral song contained some strange, eerie noise hidden in the background, a sound that resembled a faint but desperate cry for help. That discovery made Ritsu instantly realize this was far from a simple matter. After much deliberation, he decided to tell his friends about it, since the song had exploded in popularity lately. Ritsu knew they had been listening to it too, but just as Ritsu was telling them what he had found, their surroundings suddenly fell into an eerie, complete silence. Only after a long while did things return to normal. They seemed to have completely forgotten what Ritsu had just told them, frustrated at being ignored. Ritsu had no choice but to repeat what he had said. Then, he played the song aloud, asking his friends to listen closely. However, the moment the music started playing, something completely unexpected happened. Everyone around them seemed to freeze in midair, as if enchanted by some kind of magic. After a brief silence, they all turned at the same time, moving like puppets on strings, unnaturally synchronized and eerie. While Ritsu was still in shock from the scene, a loud noise from downstairs caught his attention. It turned out someone was in a fight. A man in a white top was throwing punches at several people. Upstairs, two girls were filming the scene. From their conversation, Ritsu learned that the man in white was named Satake, a well-known brawler at school. But before Ritsu could fully process what was happening, he was horrified to see that his friend Biwasaka had charged into the fray. Ritsu was baffled. As far as he knew, Biwasaka and Satake had no connection at all. Could he be doing this just to show off? Trying to impress the girls? But when Ritsu shared that thought with the friends next to him, they turned and walked away, cold and silent. In that instant, Ritsu was struck by an overwhelming sense of unreality. It felt like he was trapped inside a virtual game world, surrounded by emotionless NPCs and players. At that moment, only Satake seemed to notice his unease. Back home, that sense of wrongness only grew stronger in Ritsu's heart. At first, he thought it was just one of those little glitches in everyday life. But as time went on, every action he took felt more and more like something he had done countless times before. When the teacher called on him in class, Ritsu felt like he had answered that exact question multiple times already. Even when he glanced at a random word, strange memories would surface in his mind. The curve of a missed basketball shot on the playground looked hauntingly familiar, and there were places he had never visited, yet they felt deeply, unshakably familiar, until the day of the senior graduation ceremony. Ritsu's overwhelming sense of deja vu only intensified as he sat in the audience. One moment, a senior girl was delivering her graduation speech. The next moment, that girl had inexplicably become a senior boy. As bizarre as that already was, what happened next defied all logic. Time for Ritsu seemed to fall into an endless loop. When he woke up the next day, he found himself no longer a senior, but a freshman again. Even more terrifying, the senior who gave the speech at the ceremony had suddenly become the freshman class representative. In that moment, Ritsu finally realized the truth. That uncanny sense of familiarity he'd always felt. It was because he had already lived through these events countless times before. Ritsu was stunned to discover that his entire 3 years of high school had been looping over and over again, and he was trapped in this terrifying vortex of time. Relying on sheer instinct, he became convinced that the senior on the stage, Kensuke, was not what he seemed. And just as Kensuke finished his speech, a spotlight suddenly lit up the stage. Then, out of nowhere, a girl appeared in midair, singing as she descended. It was Mu, the globally famous pop star who had recently taken the world by storm, and the song she sang was the very same one at the center of all the bizarre events. In that instant, Ritsu realized the scene around him had grown increasingly nightmarish. Everyone's eyes had gone glassy, staring straight at him with an eerie stillness. As the rhythm of the song rose and fell, the people around him began to twist and distort, transforming into grotesque. Ritsu saw Masaki sitting on the floor in shock, Without thinking, he grabbed her and started to run for their lives. Satake suddenly appeared in front of them, though his body had taken on the form of a monster. His eyes still held the clarity and calm of a normal person. In the blink of an eye, for monsters had been reduced to ashes, the sight shook Ritsu to his core. After all, just before they heard that song, those monsters had been ordinary human beings. In the next instant, even more monsters began to pour in from every direction. That eerie song still echoed in their ears. On the screen above, Mu continued to sing. A monster launched a surprise attack. Thankfully, Satake was strong and quick. In the nick of time, he helped Ritsu dodge a fatal blow, but with them constantly on the run, Ritsu hadn't had a single chance to ask Satake where these monsters had come from. At that moment, Masaki suddenly spoke up beside him. She didn't understand why Ritsu was running, and kindly warned him not to get involved with Satake, since he seemed to be constantly getting into fights along the way. Ritsu had no idea what she meant by that. Satake, standing nearby, explained to Ritsu that Masaki couldn't see the monsters. Just then, the monsters caught up to them. Satake grabbed Ritsu and started running again, leaving Masaki behind. They made it across the street. Ritsu wanted Masaki to follow them, but he quickly realized the monsters didn't seem to see her at all. The two of them had no choice but to move on. They escaped to a relatively safe spot, and Satake finally lowered his weapon, but Ritsu still felt suspicious of Satake. After all, they hadn't known each other before today, and the fact that Satake left Masaki behind left a bad taste in Ritsu's mouth. Seeing the conflict on Ritsu's face, Satake suddenly headbutted him. Then he calmly explained, Masaki wasn't like them. She couldn't sense the presence of the monsters. Only those who noticed something was wrong with the world could actually see the monsters. And Ritsu was someone Satake had spent a long time trying to find. Someone like him, but Ritsu didn't buy it. He turned to leave. Just then, a glowing orb of soft light floated into view. It morphed into a tiny girl, no bigger than a hand. She introduced herself as Arya, and told Ritsu that the strange noise he'd heard in the song was her distress signal. She was calling for help. She begged Ritsu to save Mu, but something about her seemed unhinged, and she quickly got into a shouting match with Satake. Their bizarre and senseless bickering left Ritsu completely confused. He felt like he didn't belong here anymore, so he left them behind and walked alone to a nearby bridge, where he called Masaki. What she told him next was completely unexpected. His strange behavior today had been caught on camera and posted online. It even went viral. When Ritsu saw the video Masaki sent him, he finally understood. To everyone else, the monsters weren't visible at all. Meanwhile, the chaos back at school had already settled down, and Ritsu returned home safely. However, things only got stranger. To his horror, he discovered that the faces of his family members had been blurred out like a pixelated mosaic. Panicked, Ritsu fled into the streets, only to find that every single person he passed had their faces covered in the same pixelated distortion. Meanwhile, other students who had escaped the school were also witnessing the same bizarre scenes. Ritsu thought back at the entrance ceremony, when that new song had caused everyone to turn into monsters. So now, he made a decision. He would play that song again, and this time, his target would be his own friends. Just in case, he planned to trigger it remotely through his phone. Sure enough, his friend actually did transform into a monster, and Ritsu, watching from the rooftop, saw everything with chilling clarity. He realized he was on the right track, and maybe he was getting closer to the truth. But in the very next moment, Ritsu's heart sank into despair. His other friends also turned into monsters, and even worse, the monsters noticed him up on the rooftop. In an instant, they appeared right in front of Ritsu, and they spoke to him. "We've been waiting for you. What took you so long?" Suddenly, Ritsu remembered he had promised to meet them downstairs. Since Ritsu didn't show up, the monsters decided he needed to be punished. Just as things were about to take a deadly turn, a burst of fire shot through the air, interrupting their attack. It was Satake. The monsters instantly turned their focus to him, but Satake stayed calm and composed, as if he'd seen scenes like this countless times before. When the flames died down, 3 of the monsters had already been neutralized. Satake approached Ritsu again and invited him to join his organization, but once again, Ritsu refused. Satake didn't push. He simply said, "If you change your mind one day, Come find me at the old music club on campus. Then, Ritsu boarded a train. He decided to leave this town behind. Maybe that way, he could finally break free from the endless loop of high school life and never have to face those terrifying monsters again. After Ritsu got off the train, the sight before him left him completely stunned. The world ahead shimmered like an illusion, as if it could shatter at any second. Just then, Ritsu encountered 3 others who had experienced the same strange phenomena: Yuki, Daiki, and Yoshiko. They too had been through bizarre, inexplicable events. Yoshiko's experience, however, was far more terrifying. Her mother, once sickly and skeletal, looked like she was suffering from extreme anorexia, refusing to eat no matter what. Then, last night, Yoshiko made a wish, and the next morning, her mother had transformed into a stunning, radiant beauty. The sudden change left her deeply unsettled, because this woman in front of her was nothing like the mother she remembered. As the 4 of them shared their stories, Mu appeared again floating in midair. She told them that bringing the world to this state was already her limit. What's more, the area ahead was incomplete. They couldn't go any further. Mu then offered to grant them any wish, except the wish to leave this place, and with that, she vanished into thin air. On the way back, the group walked in heavy silence, each carrying the weight of their own thoughts. Yuki and Daiki headed to the library, hoping to find a moment of peace. Ritsu, however, decided to visit the school's old music club to get the full truth from Satake. Meanwhile, Yoshiko received a mysterious invitation to a tea party. The message was alluring, promising that every question she had would be answered if she attended. At the same time, in a hidden corner of this strange world, a secret meeting was taking place. A group calling themselves the Ostinato Musicians had gathered. They claimed their mission was to eliminate unnecessary anomalies in this world. Among them, a girl named Naruko had already chosen her next target, Yoshiko. Elsewhere, Ritsu finally learned the shocking truth from Satake. This world they were in was called Mobius, a fully virtual reality. The people with pixelated faces, they were just NPCs like background characters in a game, and those with normal faces, they were players just like him. But not all players were equal. There were 3 tiers. Lowest tier players could spontaneously transform into monsters. Mid-tier players sensed the world was off but remained human. And the top tier were the so-called Ostinato Musicians. They had godlike power, able to reshape reality at will. Mu, the famous pop star, she was an artificial intelligence, the creator of this world. All the players trapped here, they were people who felt broken in the real world. Drawn in by Mu's song, Mu had created Mobius to give them peace, to help them escape their pain and find happiness. But she was too naive, unable to distinguish good from evil, and in that weakness, she was manipulated by those powerful players, giving rise to the Ostinato Musicians. Now, they controlled her. They changed their appearances at will, even their age and gender, and ruled over Mobius like tyrants, the monsters from the entrance ceremony. All they're doing. Satake then summoned a revolver and showed it to Ritsu. He explained this was a special power granted to him by Arya, who had once co-created Mobius alongside Mu. But as Mu's strength grew, Arya's influence waned. Now, in order to escape Mobius, they needed to fight back, and to do that, they had to gather more players, others like them. During the chaos of the ceremony, Satake had already identified students who hadn't turned into monsters. He sent invitations to all of them. Meanwhile, at the mysterious tea party, Yoshiko was growing more and more uneasy. She had come hoping to uncover answers, but the host, Naruko, only kept urging them to eat more. As time passed, the party became grotesque. The guests gorged themselves non-stop, even swallowing cups whole. Then, Naruko finally revealed her true intention. She envied Yoshiko's slim figure, and that envy had twisted into hatred. At that moment, Junko, sitting nearby, felt a strange sense of deja vu. She watched Naruko slurping down noodles, and suddenly remembered she had seen this before. The exact same motions, from a popular food vlogger. But that vlogger was actually a middle-aged, overweight man. That's right, Naruko's real identity was that man, shunned in the real world. He had come to Mobius, and finally felt seen confident. But now, with his secret exposed, Naruko was overcome with shame, and fled the party. Because of that, Yoshiko and Junko narrowly escaped danger. Then, they both received the same message, a text summoning them to the school's old music club.